Cleveland 911 police ambulance to fire.
Hey, check this out. I just came from McDonald's, right? This broad is trying to break out the fucking house next door to me. She like, this motherfucker done kidnapped me and my daughter, and we've been in this bitch. She saying her on the east side. You know what I mean?
Sir, you have to calm down and slow down. Is she still in the street?
Yeah, I'm looking at her. She right now. She calling y'all. She on another phone.
Cleveland 911.
Hello, please.
You need police, fire, or ambulance.
I need police.
Okay, and what's going on there?
I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years, and I'm here. I'm free now. I'm across the street. I'm using the phone.
Okay, stay there with those neighbors. Talk to the police when they get there.
Okay.
Okay, talk to the police when they get there.
Okay. Hello?
Yeah, talk to the police when they get there.
Okay, I'm on the way right now.
We're going to send them as soon as we get a car open.
No, I need them now before we get back.
Can you ask her if she needs an ambulance?
She needs an ambulance? She needs everything. She's in a panic, bro. I guess she's been kidnapped, so, put yourself on her shoes.
That was a call from Amanda Berry, pleading for help after a decade of captivity. This single moment led police to a house near downtown Cleveland, where they found Amanda and two other women, Gina De Jesus and Michelle Knight, who had also disappeared almost 10 years ago. They were all young, just in their teens and early 20s when they vanished. The house where they were found belonged to Ariel Castro, one of three brothers quickly arrested after the women were discovered. This place, Castro's home, had held them captive, hidden away from the world for almost 10 years. It started with a phone call, a voice finally heard, and ended with a rescue that closed chapters of pain for Amanda, Gina, and Michelle. So, what exactly happened that day? Let's rewind to a few hours back.
Accused of abducting and holding women hostage are in jail this morning awaiting arraignment as this neighborhood and even the family.
That day, everything changed for Amanda Berry. It was a normal day for anyone else, but for Amanda, it was the day she saw a glimmer of hope after 10 long years. On the morning of May 6, 2013, Ariel Castro, the man who had held her captive, carelessly left the house and forgot to lock the main internal door. However, the outer storm door remained securely bolted. Amanda had been through this before. Castro would often leave doors slightly open as a cruel test, punishing them if they attempted to escape. But this time, Amanda heard the outside world through the screen door and couldn't hold back. She screamed for help, hoping someone would hear her. And someone did. Angel Cordero, a neighbor who was the first to respond. He couldn't understand her because he spoke little English, but he knew she was in distress.
I looked towards the front door of the house where the kidnapping was. I saw that woman screaming, asking for help. She couldn't open the door. I looked over, I crossed the street, and I went to ask her if the house was on fire. She told me no, that I've been kidnapped for 10 years.
Soon, another neighbor, Charles Ramsey, joined him. Together, they managed to kick a hole through the bottom of the storm door.
And then see this girl, and she just going nuts on the door. So we had to kick open the bottom. Luckily on that door was aluminum, it was cheap. And she climbed out with her daughter. That girl Amanda told the police, I ain't just the only ones, it's some more girls up in that house.
Amanda, carrying her young daughter, crawled out through that hole. She told Ramsey she and her child were being held against their will. Once free, Amanda ran to the home of another neighbor, Wintel Tejeda. With Ramsey's help, she called 911. The police arrived quickly. Officers Anthony Espada, Michael Tracy, and Barbara Johnson entered Castro's house, guns drawn, announcing their presence. As they moved through the house, Michelle Knight peeked from behind a bedroom door. Upon seeing the officers, she ran into their arms, repeating over and over, "You saved me." Gina De Jesus emerged soon after, and together, the women and Amanda's daughter walked out of the house that had been their prison for almost a decade.
Even before we could stop the car, she's right at the window. We look at her and we look at each other, and that's her.
I mean, as soon as she walked up to the window, he just looked at me with it. I mean, I could tell, never saw that look on Mike before, and he's like, it's her. It's kind of asked her, what's your name? And she looked at me, she said, "I'm Amanda Berry."
Amanda tells the officers that 2 other women, Michelle Knight and Gina DeJesus, are still captive inside Ariel Castro's home.
It was very quiet until you hear the pitter-patter steps. You know, then you're, what's going on? Shine the light so she could see, and that's, I think, when she came running out.
She kind of caught me off guard. She jumped on me, had her arms around my neck, her feet wrapped around my waist. I couldn't holster my gun, you know, I'm trying to hold her, and she's just yelling in my face, "You saved us, you saved us." You know, I'm Michelle Knight. I've been here for 10 years or 12 years.
They were taken to Metro Health Medical Center. The world outside was a rush of noise and light, but also a promise of safety they hadn't felt in years. Amanda and Gina were released from the hospital the next day, their spirits lifted by freedom. Michelle stayed a bit longer, leaving the hospital 4 days later on May 10th. Their ordeal was over, far from what anyone has imagined. These crimes were committed by Ariel Castro, who seemed like just as ordinary as a man could be, right up until the moment he used a sinister method to kidnap his victims. He would exploit the trust and need for a simple ride home, but the victims would end up in his prison-like house. His first victim was Michelle Knight. Born on April 23, 1981, Knight was 21 years old when she was kidnapped on August 23, 2002. Her cousins had just dropped her off at a friend's house, and she was trying to figure out how she'd get her son, Joey, back from state custody, where he was being held as the fight over custody waged on. Stress of the court hearing was overwhelmingly for Michelle at 21 years old. Somehow, she ended up with Castro and never reached court for the hearing. The authorities initially believed she was a flight risk, that she had run off because she was mad. She was mad and she ran off. The poor bastards had no idea that her absence was because of anything other than necessity. Amanda Berry, the next to be abducted. Ariel Castro went after Amanda Berry. Amanda, born on April 22, 1986, disappeared on April 21, 2003, on the eve of her 17th birthday. She had gotten off her job around 8 p.m. at a nearby Burger King and told her sister that she was getting a ride home.
I had gotten off of work early that day, and I worked at Burger King. I called my sister for a ride. She was at work, and I had called a friend for a ride, and he didn't answer, so I just started walking. And as I was walking, there was a van, and it was in a driveway that I had to go around. I looked up, saw a man and a girl in the van. The girl looked like someone that I had worked with, so, I smiled at them, continued to walk. A couple minutes later, the van pulls up, and he says, "Do you need a ride?" I had my Burger King outfit on, so he noticed that, and he was talking about how his son had used to work there, and that I knew a couple of his kids,
So it was a kind of casual conversation.
Yes.
And then, of course, when you get to the house, you immediately know that he's not going to let you out.
Yes.
At first, the FBI tagged her as a runaway, but a week afterward, the situation changed when an unidentified male called Amanda's mom using Amanda's cell phone, telling her, "I have Amanda. She's okay and will be at home in a couple of days." Amanda's family had been given this chilling message, which was the only lead her family could cling to, for Amanda was in far graver danger. The third unfortunate woman was Gina DeJesus. Castro abducted Gina DeJesus on April 2, 2004. Gina, 14 years old, was last seen trying to use a payphone around 3 p.m. after leaving her middle school. She had a date with a friend, Castro's daughter Arlene, that evening. The two girls had even called Arlene's mother to ask permission for a sleepover at DeJesus's house, but when they were told no, they parted. But Arlene was the last person to see Gina that day. Gina mistakenly trusted Castro, who she knew for many years as the father of her friend.
I was walking home from school with his daughter, Arlene Castro, and she used a payphone to call her mom to ask her if she could come to my house. And her mom said no, she went her other way, and I went the other way. he asked me if I seen his daughter, and I said yes, and he was like, can you help me find her? I was like, yes, and then he didn't turn around. We ended up going to his house.
Castro, however, had other plans that Gutierrez was not aware of. The terrible link. These abductions are all the more heinous because of the link that Castro shared with his victims and their families. He not only lived in the same neighborhood, but his family knew the De Jesus family. Despite these connections, Castro later said he did not realize Gina was connected to the De Jesus family when he abducted her. The method of Castro was simple enough that one would not think it likely to work on 3 different occasions. He would offer a ride to any one of his eventual captives, drive them to his residence at 2207 Seymour Avenue, coax them inside for any number of reasons, and then trap them in the basement. Here, in the darkness beyond the world's sight, he bound them, dispossessing them of freedom and starting a harsh, generations-long servitude. The predatory pattern not only serves to demonstrate the vulnerability of his victims, but also the cunning manipulation of Castro. The abductions appeared to be well thought out, taking advantage of the women's misplaced trust and temporary lack of transportation, acts that would have devastating ramifications as it resulted in years of imprisonment. As the community and the nation struggled with the realization of these events, the tales of Michelle, Amanda, and Gina were painful reminders of how precarious our sense of security can be, and of the toll upon individuals, families, and on entire communities which such crimes take. Continuing from where we left off, after abducting the 3 women, Castro's brutality began immediately. He took Michelle Knight to the upper floor of his Seymour Avenue home, where he bound her hands and feet, suspending her in a painful position that involved her hands, feet, and neck. In this torturous state, Michelle was left alone, without food, for 3 harrowing days. The suffering endured by Michelle, Amanda Berry, and Gina De Jesus in that grim house was thoroughly recorded in their diaries. These personal accounts reveal a chilling narrative of forced sexual abuse, endless dark days spent locked away, and perpetual fear of Castro's next violent outburst, and the clinging hope of one day escaping to reunite with their families. They were restrained like prisoners of war, missing the ordinary lives they once led, enduring emotional torture alongside the physical horrors. Castro's threats were constant. He told them he would kill them, treating them less like human beings and more like caged animals. Their living conditions were dismal. The bedrooms were their prisons, equipped with just a plastic toilet that was seldom emptied, emphasizing their degraded living situation. They would only get 1 meal a day. Regarding their hygiene, it was much worse. Regarding getting raped daily or once in 2 or 3 days, they were only allowed to shower once or just twice a week. Michelle's resilience was tested to its limits. Castro impregnated her multiple times, each pregnancy cruelly ended by his violent actions. He subjected her to severe beatings with dumbbells, punches, and by throwing her against the walls. He also starved her. The physical consequences were severe, as after getting free, Michelle needed facial reconstruction surgery because of the beatings, and that she had permanently lost hearing in one ear. Adding to the cruelty, Michelle once had a pet dog while in captivity, a small comfort in her isolated world. Tragically, when the dog tried to protect her from Castro, he killed it by snapping its neck. One particularly harrowing incident occurred on Christmas Day in 2006. Castro forced Michelle to play midwife during the birth of Amanda Berry's child, which took place in a makeshift delivery room setup in a small inflatable swimming pool. He chillingly threatened to kill Michelle if the child did not survive. In a terrifying moment, the newborn stopped breathing, but Michelle, drawing on reserves of strength and calm, managed to resuscitate the baby, saving both their lives. The years dragged on, with each day a repeat of misery and abuse. The women coped by clinging to the hope of escape and to each other, their solidarity one of the few things Castro couldn't take from them. Their eventual escape would not only bring their plight to an end, but would also bring to light the depth of their courage and will to survive in the face of unimaginable adversity. The community and the world would come to recognize these women, not just as victims of a monstrous crime, but as embodiments of strength, resilience, and an undying hope for freedom. After the daring escape and rescue of the women, Ariel Castro found his freedom abruptly ending in the parking lot of a McDonald's, where he was arrested just hours later.
See your driver's license. See your driver's license, please. What's wrong? First off, your plate's improperly displayed. It has to be displayed left to right, not upside down or sideways. Then the other question is why you're riding it then. Or you don't have a helmet on, you don't have a license to operate it. And you subject yourself to being arrested. Is that what you want? No, sir, I don't.
30 minutes long or so, you can see Castro. He's in the top left corner of your screen, and he is there with his brother. Now, as you know, both his brothers face no charges in connection with the women being held in captivity. Of course, we're talking about Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight. Now, in the video, Castro is wearing the jailhouse blues. You can see the police separate him and his brother, and you can see the brother getting visibly upset about something. Again, Castro will be back in court for a pretrial.
This arrest marked the beginning of a complex legal journey that would captivate and horrify a nation. On May 8th, 2 days after the rescue, Castro was formally charged. The charges were severe: 4 counts of kidnapping and 3 counts of rape, with the legal system in Ohio stipulating prison sentences ranging from 10 years to life for such crimes. Initially, Castro wasn't the only family member taken into custody. His brothers, Pedro and O'Neill, were also arrested. However, it quickly became clear that they were not involved in the kidnappings. By May 9th, the charges against them were dropped, and they were released, focusing all legal accountability on Ariel Castro. Castro's first courtroom encounter occurred shortly afterward, at the Cleveland Municipal Court. Here, the gravity of his alleged crimes was met with a substantial bail setting, $2 million for each kidnapping charge, totaling a staggering $8 million. The severity of the charges brought up discussions of the death penalty, a testament to the public and legal uproar his actions had caused. Despite this, Castro's defense attorneys stated that he would plead not guilty to all charges if indicted for kidnapping and rape. As the wheels of justice continued to turn, a grand jury in Cuyahoga County deliberated and returned with a sweeping indictment. Castro was slammed with a total of 977 counts. These included 512 counts of kidnapping, 446 of rape, along with charges of gross sexual imposition, felonious assault, child endangerment, aggravated murder, and possession of criminal tools. This extensive list of charges painted a detailed and disturbing picture of the extent of Castro's crimes against Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gina DeJesus. On July 17th, in the face of these overwhelming charges, Castro entered a plea of not guilty to the expanded indictment. The implications of this plea were immense. If convicted on all charges, he faced the ultimate penalty, death by lethal injection. Throughout this legal process, the resilience and bravery of Michelle, Amanda, and Gina continued to resonate. Their stories, filled with unthinkable hardships, yet marked by their survival, brought not only a sense of justice, but also highlighted the strength of the human spirit in the face of darkness. As the trial proceedings unfolded, they held the promise of closure, and perhaps a measure of peace for the women who had suffered so much and for so long under Castro's cruel dominion. As the legal proceedings moved forward, Ariel Castro faced the consequences of his heinous actions. On July 26th, in a significant turn of events, Castro pleaded guilty to 937 of the 977 charges levied against him, which included kidnapping, rape, and aggravated murder.
Mr. Castro, my understanding from meeting with your counsel and counsel for the state is that a plea agreement has been reached in this matter. Are you fully aware of the terms, and do you consent to that plea agreement?
I am fully aware, and I do consent to it.
You understand that by virtue of the plea, you will not be having a trial?
I am aware of that.
The parties have agreed to a negotiated recommended sentence to the court, and we ask the court to accept it based on the contract before you.
This plea was part of a negotiated agreement that would see him receiving consecutive life sentences, plus an additional 1,000 years, all without the possibility of parole. As part of this deal, Castro also relinquished any right to appeal and was barred from profiting in any manner from the crimes he had committed. Furthermore, he was required to forfeit all his assets, including the Seymour Avenue house where the crimes took place, which was set to be demolished as per the prosecutor's statements. The gravity of his sentence was underscored during a subsequent hearing before Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court Judge Michael Russo. The judge made it explicitly clear to Castro that he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. On August 1st, the sentencing hearing took place, where Castro received the agreed-upon consecutive life terms plus 1,000 years, ensuring he would never leave prison. He was also fined $100,000, and all of his property and assets were forfeited to the Cuyahoga County government. During his nearly 20-minute address to the court before his sentencing, Castro described himself as a good person and not a monster. He attempted to attribute his actions to a sex and pornography addiction, claiming he had practiced the art of masturbation from a young age.
Appeared to defend his actions.
I just want to clear the record that I am not a monster. I did not prey on these women. I just acted on my sexual instincts because of my sexual addiction. And God is my witness. I never beat these women like they're trying to say that I did. I never tortured them. You guys know all the harmony that went on in that home.
And the sex, according to Castro, was not rape.
All of it was consensual.
A claim that was dismissed by the judge. Castro told the court he too was a victim of sexual abuse.
I am not a violent predator that they're trying to make me look a monster. I'm not a monster. I'm a normal person. I am just sick. I have an addiction. Just like an alcoholic has an addiction. Because we had a lot of harmony going on in that home. And if you've seen the YouTube video of Amanda this weekend, that right there itself proves that that girl did not go through no torture. Do you think she will be out partying on radio having fun? I don't think so.
He shockingly claimed that he had never physically harmed the women and made the outrageous assertion that most of the sexual acts were consensual. His statement oscillated between self-pity and blame, at times apologizing. Strangely, for his crime, he pointed fingers at the FBI for not catching him sooner. He even blamed his victims for their own abduction, citing their decisions to get into a car with a stranger. Castro's remarks during his sentencing also included disturbing comments about the sexual history of his victims, claiming to have discovered they were not virgins, which was intended to justify his actions. These comments were interspersed with sporadic apologies, as he expressed a hope that his victims could find it in their hearts to forgive him, bizarrely reflecting on the harmony he perceived was present in the house. The sentence handed to Castro closed a dark chapter for the community and the nation, but more importantly, it brought a sense of justice, however small, to the survivors of his cruel actions. While no punishment could ever fully right the wrongs done, the life sentence without parole ensured that Ariel Castro would never harm another individual again. His delusional justifications during sentencing only served to highlight the severity of his disconnect from the reality of the pain and suffering he inflicted on his victims, ensuring that his final moments in public were marked by a display of his twisted perceptions and lack of true remorse. After his sentencing, it became clear that Ariel Castro had not envisaged a future beyond his eventual arrest. He once described himself as cold-blooded and a sex addict, acknowledging the inevitability of being caught. In fact, a suicide note discovered in his home echoed this sentiment. In it, Castro ruminated on the abductions and instructed that his money and possessions should be given to the women he had kidnapped, should he ever be apprehended. The aftermath of this harrowing case saw swift and symbolic action. the house at 2207 Seymour Avenue, a structure that had become a dark symbol of the pain inflicted upon Michelle, Amanda, and Gina, was razed to the ground on August 7, 2013. And Castro's fate was no different than his house either. Just a month into his life sentence, and on the evening of September 3, 2013, Castro's life came to an abrupt end. He was found hanging from a bedsheet in his cell at the Correctional Reception Center in Orient, Ohio, where he was being held. Despite immediate life-saving attempts by prison staff who performed CPR and quickly transported him to the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center in Columbus, Castro was pronounced dead shortly after his arrival. The following day, Franklin County Coroner Jan Gorniak confirmed that the preliminary autopsy pointed to suicide by hanging as the cause of death. He was 53 years old. Subsequently, Castro was cremated, marking the end of a case that had gripped and horrified the nation. As we close this chapter on this distressing story, it serves as a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the strength that emerges in the face of adversity. The courage displayed by Michelle, Amanda, and Gina continues to inspire and drive conversations about justice and the protection of the vulnerable in our society. Thank you for joining us in reflecting on these events. If you found this documentary informative and believe in the importance of bringing such stories to light, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue to investigate and share these crucial stories. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below, and thank you for watching. Your engagement helps make a difference in ensuring such narratives are heard and never forgotten.